Hello, y'all.
Feels so official.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, what a packed room. I've never seen it this packed. So honored to have all of you here. I'm Andrew Dalton, and I'm the Executive Director of the Adams County Historical Society and Beyond the Battle Museum, and I see all of your stickers, so I'm sure some of you have been through the museum. Others, we hope you'll take advantage of seeing it over the next few days. And we preserve millions of historic artifacts and records and documents and photographs that tell the story of this community, Gettysburg, the people, the place, and today, of course, is the 160th anniversary of the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg. So it is an honor to be here with so many folks who have made such an impact on the way that history is consumed and presented and loved by people around the country, around the world. So without a lot more of an introduction, I'm going to just give a very brief couple lines about our four distinguished guests this evening. And starting on this end is my good friend Gary Edelman, who is the author, co-author, editor of more than 30 books and articles concerning Civil War and other topics. He is the vice president of the Center of Civil War Photography and has been a licensed battlefield guide at Gettysburg for more than a decade. And he works currently as the chief historian at the American Battlefield Trust.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Next, we have J.D. Hewitt, who is the creator of the History Underground YouTube page. And, yeah.
Wow, look at that.
Those of us who know J.D. know two things. He loves meat and only eats meat. And two, a lot of us know he is sort of a dumb redneck, and we don't know how he's gotten so famous.
Wow. True story.
He did tell me to say that.
Hey, just to clear a few things up, I also eat macaroni and cheese and potatoes.
Very good. Yep. Next, we have Chris Mowry, who is very good.
Look at that.
Lots of Chris fans here tonight. Wonderful. He is from Northeast Ohio, where his most important job is being a husband and father of three, and we have one of his three here tonight. Very nice to have you with us. And he was introduced to history through Ken Burns' documentary when it first came out. And of course, his channel is Vlogging Through History, which he'll tell you more about. Chris is also a professional genealogist, and he's written 8 family history books and is working on another non-fiction book about the 20th Ohio Infantry. So we are excited to have him here tonight.
All right.
And last, but certainly not least, the man in front and behind the camera in thousands of videos that you all love on YouTube, Chris White, who is the Deputy Director of Education at the American Battlefield Trust. Chris served as a ranger historian for nearly 5 years at Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania National Military Park. He's also the co-founder and chief historian of Emerging Civil War, which I'm sure many of you have checked out online. It's a great site. And he has authored, co-authored, or edited nearly 24 books and frequently leads tours in the United States and abroad. Please join me in thanking all 4 of our wonderful guests here tonight.
So I think I have to sit still for an hour now. So this is going to be somewhat difficult.
How are you going to move your hands if you're holding the mic?
We'll work it out. So we're just going to go right from JD to Chris, and before long I'll figure out a way to know which Chris I'm talking about here. But right away with JD, it's clear we have some partisans here based on some of the rampant applause in different parts of the room here for different partisans. So not everybody knows about all these channels, so you get less than 1 minute. Okay, what is the History Underground, and what do you do?
So History Underground is an education-based history YouTube channel that really has 2 different tracks that run the channel. One is a series called History Traveler, which focuses on, obviously, travel to places of history, of historic importance. Wasn't very clever with that name, now that I think about it. And then the other one is a series called American Artifact, which is in partnership with the Gettysburg Museum of History, which kind of focuses on artifacts.
Good. Let's move over to Vlogging Through History.
So I started my channel in 2020 as a way to document just to vlog visiting historic sites, and then COVID happened and shut everything down, and So I just had a channel sitting there, and somebody suggested that I should start doing reaction videos to other people's history content. I hated reaction videos. I thought it was a terrible idea. And I did it, and the channel blew up. And so I kept on doing it, and now I've done like 900 of them. But really, reaction's the wrong word. What I'm doing is I'm using that content as a textbook to have a deeper conversation about those topics. And it also occasionally allows me to shine a light on channels that other people maybe have not been introduced to yet, which has been an awesome thing. And I still do the traveling and the documenting of historic sites, but the reactions are what allow me to do that kind of fun stuff.
Good, thanks, Chris. And I'm, based on a few hats in the room, I'm really curious in hearing about this next organization on the end there. That's the American Battlefield Trust?
Yeah, I'm sure you haven't heard of us. But the American Battlefield Trust, for those of you who don't know, is a land preservation organization. We're based in Washington, and we preserve battlefield lands associated with the American Revolution, War of 1812, and the Civil War. Our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page, is really an outlet for our education team in many ways, as well as our development team and others, to get the message out there about what lands we want to preserve, what challenges we face here as preservationists, and then of course we want to have people engage with history in a meaningful manner, because preserve, educate, and inspire are our three, our tagline, even though I think educate should be first, because that's our department. But that's what we do. We try to get out there. We try to get people interested in history through a really exciting way of engaging. And usually there's a lot of arm waving and a guy who does his false starts a lot. That would be him down in the end.
Thanks, Chris. Over to Chris Mowry. You mentioned that the channel blew up. I mean, looking at where you are now, did you have any idea?
Not a clue. I had 1,000 subscribers after several months, and then in the span of 3 months, it was 100,000, and it just happened so fast. Like, I didn't even know what happened. It just never intended to start the channel with the idea that it would turn into a full-time thing, which it has for me now. It's totally unexpected.
All right, and Chris White, same thing about the Trust. When you arrived at the Trust, we didn't really have much of a video program.
No, we had about 12,000 subscribers to our YouTube channel. Now we're up to about 360,000. That's a huge team effort having to do that. And a lot of it comes back to Gary coming up with this idea to go to a place live and bring people who can't always travel around the country, bring them right to where the history happened. And then we came up with the ideas to bring stuff to these places, like we did today on Little Round Top with Governor Kimball Warren's field glasses. So, we try to intersect all that together and make it interesting for folks.
All right, and JD, same thing, since we're jealous of your number of subs.
The question was, did I ever see?
Did you have any idea?
Zero. No, I had no idea. The genesis for my channel actually came from a group of high school students. I've told this story before, but I just used my phone to record some things at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, and then showed it to this group of high school students, and they said, "Hey, that was actually pretty good. That was interesting." They said,
positively tolerable.
Yeah, I know. They said, you ought to make a YouTube channel with some of the places that you go, and I have a background in film and television and stuff like that. They said, you ought to make a YouTube channel. And I said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Nobody will ever watch that. But they kept pushing me, and I ended up rolling with it. And I thought, well, if it provides value maybe to some other teachers or people can find value in it in some way, then give it a whirl.
All right, cool. I think this will be fun. We're going to talk about the substance of doing this, or why we shouldn't and whatnot. But I am curious. We'll start with Chris White on this one. What's a particularly memorable experience? Everybody who does this stuff knows that being on video a lot changes you or your life to some extent, especially when you go to certain places. So Chris, what's a particularly memorable one? I'll just say that I've had people, I hope you're not here, like spawn out of the bushes to come up to me.
It's
like,
true, I witnessed it.
Yeah. And it was 7 a.m. at my hotel. I had my TSA agent last year check my thing. Okay, sir, you ready? And then he looked up from my license and saw that. So there's all these cool experiences. Chris, what comes to mind?
We've got to do a lot of cool things, and just to pull back the curtain for a moment, people think that Gary and I just speak about history constantly. We take a lot of road trips together, we drive, and usually we quote movies. And I mean,
That's it.
that's what we do. It's Star Wars, it's movies, or whatever. And one of my favorite things that we did was one of our first live swings ever. It might have been our first live swing, and it goes back to the movie The Rock. We got to go underneath Alcatraz, and that was one of the coolest things. This guy emailed Gary out of the blue. We get a lot of those emails, hey, you should come here. And it's like, should we come here? And he's like, I'm the Friends of the Alcatraz for Civil War Alcatraz. And it turns out Steve was awesome. He got us over there underneath. It was like Pee Wee Herman trying to find the basement of the Alamo, but it actually existed. See a movie reference right there.
Well done, Chris. And I'll just say, like, there's this time some guy from West Point emailed me about coming up and doing some sort of a Zoom thing, and I was just like, no, we'll go there, and you'll bring Warren's field glasses down to Little Round Top, and I'll get Little Round Top opened, and bam! It's just crazy, this world we're in. Let's go to JD and then Chris.
What was some of the one of the strangest things?
No,
that's
we'll
happened?
get on to that one.
Oh.
A little bit later. Memorable. What's
Memorable.
something that really stands out? It could be strange, I guess.
Okay, well, it's not really strange. Probably the most memorable experience that I've had since having the YouTube channel. I had a friend, he's passed away, about 3 or 4 years ago, by the name of Reed Stevens, who was a machine gunner in the 7th Armored Division, was in the Battle of the Bulge, was captured there. And I had the opportunity to travel back, or to travel to Belgium, and I had, spent a lot of time, hearing his stories and things like that. Worked with a local historian there, and actually went to the area where he was captured and found the foxholes in the vicinity of where he was, and called him while I was there and talked to him. And I don't know what I'll do, from here on out. I don't know if I'll ever have an experience that tops that.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
No, I got spine tingles today on Little Round Top with an artifact that hadn't been there since the battle, and will never be there again, probably,
Yeah,
from what we were told.
amazing.
Well, let me, and Chris, same thing.
So
sorry.
I was on a tour last year with a group of guys from Band of Brothers, which I know many of you have seen, and one of the actors was Mark Lawrence, who portrayed Dukeman, who was killed at a battle called the Crossroads in the Netherlands. And we went to the site of the Crossroads, and I was walking next to Mark, and we were talking, and I said, you've been here before, right? And he said, no, this is the first time I've ever been here. We were in the process of walking to the site where Dukeman was killed. And here was a man who, for the last 20 years, Dukeman has been just a central part of his life. And I just very kind of nonchalantly pulled out my phone and recorded him walking up. And some of you have probably seen that video. I never intended to upload it. I talked to him that night, and then his wife friended me on Facebook and sent me a message, and I said, I'm not going to put this up, that's too personal. She said, Mark's fine with it, trust me. I talked to him, he said he was fine with it. We uploaded it, and it's been one of my most watched videos, just this 5-minute clip of this guy walking to this site and just having this really emotional, really kind of a spiritual experience in this place where this guy was killed.
Wow. Okay, so here's what I want to know. We'll stick with you, Chris Mowry. You said that none of us, actually, the Trust is kind of deliberate about it, in wanting to grow our channel because we get more viewers, we get more members, everything like that. But especially for you two, and let's start with Chris Mowry. Why do you do this? Now, I know the channel started to blow up, but I have a kid who got 180,000 followers on TikTok in 3 months and then just shut it off one day.
Yep.
You don't have to continue to do this. Why do you do this?
I never started it thinking this is going to be a career, this is going to be a big money maker for me, anything like that. I had this love for history. I majored in history in college and then never did anything with it. I went into youth ministry. And so history has always been there, and it's always been a huge part of my life. And so it really was kind of more of an outlet for me to be able to talk to the air about history, and maybe somebody would listen. And what I never expected, and probably the most unexpected joy of the whole thing, is the community that has built because of it. I've gotten to know all of these people who are as obsessed with these historic events as I am, who are as big a nerds. That's the word we use, right, Gary, is nerds?
Well, it depends. I'm sure y'all in the audience know, when you graduate from nerd, what's that? Loser.
Oh,
that's when you're...
I knew there was a hierarchy. I couldn't remember what it was.
And I mean, that's when but we mean it in a good way.
There's hundreds of thousands of us out there.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite part, and that's the unexpected part for me. It was an outlet for me to do history, and that's why I keep doing it. I don't keep doing it for any other reason than I love it, and I love connecting with people, and that's why I keep telling people, because people are always afraid to, like, somebody today on Instagram said, oh, I saw you filming at the 5th New Hampshire Monument. I was like, why didn't you say hi? Oh, I didn't want to bother you. I'm like, no, bother me. It's fine. I like connecting with other people who love this stuff as much as I do.
Good. JD, same thing. Why in the world?
I have to talk to somebody. My family won't listen to me. They're tired of it.
100%.
No, I just have a passion for history. I think that history is one of the things that is a common thread that binds a people or binds a country together when they have these common roots. So telling those stories, I think is very important. So I'm obviously a big education guy, and I'm also just a fan. I love watching other YouTube channels. I like watching y'all's channel. I see Project Past down here in the audience. You know, there's tons of YouTube channels that I love to watch, and I love just being a part of it.
Cool. Now, you know, let's just say, and this is for Chris White on the end, let's just say you had to work with somebody who doesn't really reveal his plans, who seems to never sleep and always wants to travel, who then changes the plan after you think you have one, and then sort of steals the show when you try to do it. Now, why do you continue to do this?
Well, when your boss walks in your office and says, hey, why don't we live stream from, like, a cement basement that's lined in lead and make sure that it works right, figure it out, and then walks out. That was basically how I was assigned the task of being the guy behind the camera. I do it, you know, number one, because, you know, it's my job. But number two, it's really an outlet as a historian. I think that everything that we're capturing up here, I think this is a vital part of being a historian. I don't get an opportunity to be a historian very often at the Trust, ironically, and this is one of my outlets. But when we go out to these battlefields, we go to these historic sites, we're meeting with veterans, not us so much, but Chris and JD. These are really going to be oral histories that we can look back on at some point. We can see how the battlefields evolve. We can see how our interpretation evolves. So from a historian standpoint, I love that idea. I also hate reading, which is ironic. Because I write books and you know, things like that. But but I really love watching videos. I very much love watching videos, and that was another way. I think it's another medium. And we're going to engage a different audience on YouTube than we will on Twitter, than we will on Instagram and others. And I think this is one of ways to engage with people. And we were talking before this, a younger audience, sometimes a more diverse audience, and an audience who are sometimes older and cannot access places anymore because, you know, we have wounded warriors who watch our channels and say, we love where you're going because I can't physically go there. We have older people who say the same thing, or people who can't afford to go there. So, you know, we're very fortunate to be able to do this, but that's one of the main reasons I like to do it, is bring history alive, bring people to where history happened, and, you know, make it exciting. And I don't always love having to chase you with a camera because, like, you don't stand still, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, why don't we stick on you for a sec, Chris, because, you know, JD and Chris Mowry, you know, cover a broader subject matter than we do. We branch out a little bit, but first, from your perspective, what's the difference between a Civil War viewer or Civil War nerd or loser and a World War II kind of viewer or nerd? Is there a difference?
I think the World War II ones are the ones I want because I keep pushing us to do more World War II because that's really my secret love. But there is definitely a difference. Civil War losers really, really, really like to tell us what they know. And it's usually like one minute thing that we left out about their ancestor who nobody's ever heard of, and a battle that took place between 2 guys and 3 horses. So I think that's it there.
There we go.
Can I just point out that 10 years ago I would have been that guy that did that?
I was thinking we have some crossover. We have some of the same viewers.
JD, why don't you reflect on that? Because you're all over the map, literally and temporally.
Yeah, I think
For my generation and older, our generation and older, most of us knew people who were World War II veterans.
That's a good point.
And most of us have a favorite World War II film or movie and or TV show. And, you know, so I think we know a lot more stories about World War II. The Civil War, people know who Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and maybe Grant are, and maybe they know about a few of the big battles. But they're not going to know much about those more interesting stories like an Alonzo Cushing at Gettysburg, for example. I think they know a lot more of those kinds of connections with World War II than they do with the Civil War.
Cool. So let's go yes or no from JD to Chris. We'll just go down the line here. Yes or no? Have you copied, not content, but have you copied something the other channels does and made it your own? Yes or no? I didn't tell them I was going to ask this one.
Is he going first?
Yes.
Yes.
If he doesn't want to answer.
Yeah. So there's nothing new under the sun, but I will say yes. Gettysburg series relied heavily on the American Battlefield Trust videos. It was a great resource.
Now, JD really failed in yes or no. He really added on to that. So, go ahead.
Yes, I've copied from both your channels.
Okay, Chris?
Oh, you know I have.
All right, good. I wanted to get that out of the way because unabashedly, I mean, historians are supposed to talk to one another. When we argue about things, this is what we're supposed to do. And man, if we're trying to reach more people, let's not copy each other's exact content, but if something's working, I mean, there are things, and people will get into this real quick. There are things about y'all's channels of which we are absolutely jealous. Chris?
So what I was going to say was one thing that I try to communicate this on my channel, and I think people don't realize, most of us that have these YouTube channels, we're huge fans of each other's channels, and we love seeing each other grow. Like, there's occasionally a channel that you encounter that they're a jerk and they're really stubborn about stuff, but for the most part, we're fans of each other. And I loved that JD just hit 500,000 subscribers. I can't wait till he gets to 1 million. And we're all on the same side. We're all trying to do the same thing. And I think we support each other by and large.
So there was a moment that was a combination of admiration and jealousy. When I saw the videos that you all did with the Step Into History, where you took photos of at Antietam and everything like that, I was like, my gosh, that is so brilliant. I wish to heavens I would have thought of that first because it was so good and so well executed. I don't know. I don't want to go like off your script.
It's open.
I would love to hear more about that. Have you all seen those videos?
Awesome.
By the way, you're about the only ones. They're really good, but nobody's seeing them.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
it's so incredible, and I would like to maybe hear more from you about like the genesis of that or how that developed.
Yeah, good. Moderator JD here. So yeah, I mean, this was actually not our idea. It was our production partner, Wide Awake Films in Kansas City. They do most of our best stuff. They are polishing it or making it. And they, about 6 years ago, found a way to walk into a photo by rendering it after you're in it, and it wraps around you. And I never forgot the idea and always wanted to muster up the money and the time in the right way to step into Civil War photos. So we did 4 of them at Antietam last year. They, in Antietam series, it's mostly dead people, and I'm not sure if that's why people didn't do it. So I kind of dressed up and walked among the graves at Burnside Bridge and near the battery, like Knapp's Battery, and at the Dunker Church among the dead, and we zoomed over the dead at the Hagerstown Pike. And I mean, the comments were out of this world, but the views were unbelievably low compared to a video. By the way, these are $10,000 each. And our members pay for that. These are not inexpensive videos to make. They felt right. It's what we should do, and we've shot a lot more, and we'll see if we can afford to actually produce more. That's where the
you make a good point too there, that we really just never have any clue what's going to do well and what doesn't.
Yeah.
People think that if you've grown your channel to the size that we have, that you've got it figured out. We have no idea.
Yeah,
some of the stuff you think is going to be great and popular just falls flat, and then stuff you think was kind of mediocre does great.
Yeah, Chris, do you have that experience too?
Oh, we do. We'll sit around. I mean, we have more ideas than you can imagine. I mean, most of them come from that end of the table, but, it's constant trying to come up with, we think things will be cool, and then it's like, falls flat, and then other things is like, they really like that? We just threw that together, and, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, I call it.
Well, here's my experience is there have been a lot of times I'll post a video, and it'll just like dormant for maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, something grabs hold in the YouTube algorithm, and it'll just take off.
We had that recently with a few videos, but it's also what's in the news too sometimes helps.
Yeah.
If 160 Gettysburg is going to help drive our Gettysburg content and things like that, but yeah, that's a huge. Like our older videos, we have some videos that weren't performing for like 6 years, and then all of a sudden, get 100,000 views.
Yeah, there was one video we had up there for 4 years, and it was our most popular video. And for us, that's 4 million views, unlike any other video we'd had. And then all of a sudden, over a 6-week period, we got 35 million more views. You know, over 6 weeks, because it was virtual reality video, which cost a lot more than the step-in videos. And then YouTube decided to prioritize VR, and they recommended it for 6 weeks, and we got, you know, just about 1 million views a day, which was just unbelievable. You know, and so there's no way, there is no recipe for success. Is that right?
I would agree with that 100%.
Good.
I think they're a little bit. Quality content, consistent content, and making sure that you have things that people like. You know, I mean, there are some channels that legitimately all they do is yell at each other on them, and people love it. You know, and there's others who are like completely positive, like, you know, we try to keep our channel. You know, so there are things that you can do there. I think there are mile markers that you can hit, but you never know what's going to eventually take you down that road where you're going to be, you know, 500,000 views, million views, or whatever it is.
I think it's less about video to video, knowing what's going to happen, but there are, like he said, there are certain overall things about your presentation style and that's going to draw certain people. And so I think there are some overarching things that definitely do matter.
Yeah, good. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, yeah. So we started out as a love fest, and we're starting to get down a little bit, take a trip, as they say in the Wedding Crashers, to negative town. We're not going to go negative, but I am going to ask a question that might take us there.
Good, Gary, I'll put it neutral, put a little bit of syrup in my
Yeah, there we go.
This is what we do in the car.
Yeah, we quote movies all the time. For the 4 people here who've seen Wedding Crashers,
Yeah.
will be able to quote it. You're there. So, you know, I want to talk about why shouldn't somebody in the audience, somebody watching online, why shouldn't somebody do this? Because it does change things. We'll start with Chris Mowry here, and then we could have a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Somebody else wants to go first. You know, what are some of the reasons why somebody shouldn't?
If you don't have a thick skin, that's a huge one. I mean, you have to be ready for, you can do everything right. You can think you're doing everything right and being positive. There will be critics, no matter what you do. When you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people especially, there's always going to be a few. I found out today that somebody was impersonating me on Discord and had to deal with that. So there's that stuff. There's going to be other channels that make negative videos about you. We just dealt with that. I mean, so the more popular, there are benefits to that, but you have to be ready for the negative, and you just have to accept that that's part of it, I think.
Real
You
quick,
guys
I just
seriously,
saw,
you have negative viewers?
Probably some of the same ones you get.
No, I've never had any. I didn't know that there were negative people out there.
just real quick, I want to note that 1,000 people just asked what Discord is online here. On the stream.
It's something those kids use, yeah.
Chris or JD?
I would really echo that. I had a very nice lady reach out to me one time and was inspired by the work that I was doing on the channel, and said that she would like to start her own YouTube channel, which I was like, yeah, all for it. You know, the more people that are, you know, getting history out there, the more I can learn. You know, I'm like I said, I'm a fan. She said, I'm wanting to start my own YouTube channel, but I see the negative comments that you get, and I don't think that I could handle that very well. And I said, don't start a YouTube channel. Because, like you said, you have to have a lot of grace. You have to have exceptionally thick skin. My thing is the way that I go into it. I try and be lighthearted about everything and not get too serious. And I've made it a point in my life that I'm never going to let a stranger on the internet ruin my day. So I get a lot of that, but there are
Some days it's
Interesting.
easier to do that than others, but
That's
you
true.
have to try and ignore it somehow.
Yeah. Chris?
If you never want to pay for a drink again in Gettysburg, be the camera guy for Gary Edelman.
Hold on.
Say that.
That's not why to not do anything.
Well, the alcohol helps. When we, not to do it, I'll go to the number one, the time commitment. So if you have a young family, if you have time commitment, if you're going to do this, you have to stick with it, because you can't just put up one video every 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever it's going to be. You have to stick with it, and editing takes time. Now, granted, we do a lot of editing literally in the field on my phone. A lot of that is done we're doing it live. But other times we're sitting back spending 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours taking drone footage, going to Pond 5, downloading things, buying new content. So, and then exporting a video. If you don't have the right computer, it can take 8 to 12 hours to just export something.
Then you got to upload it.
Then you have to upload it. So, you know, it really is a time commitment. So, you know, the negative, yeah, you definitely have to get a thick skin. I worked in a National Park Service visitor center. That was checked off my box early.
I worked at Walmart, same thing.
There you go. You had it worse. I was at Sam's Club in high school.
In the photo lab.
Oh yeah, well, I worked for a trash company, and no, sorry.
But I think that's a big thing to think about. And then, you know, the more you want to, the better you want to do, this does cost money. So if you have to put your hard-earned dollars behind buying the right equipment, and believe me, it was trial and error sometimes when it comes to equipment, what's going to talk to what and what's going to do this and that. Gary legit came into my office, assigned it to me. I have a history background. I used to be a financial consultant. I learned all of this through YouTube and other places like that on how to do it. And then people come to me now asking me, you know, hey, how did you do this and how do you do that? And I tell them, and then they don't invite us onto their channel and use that same stuff. Not that that's a pet peeve.
As far as the tech, though, let me stick with you, Chris White.
Yeah.
As far as the tech, which you said you didn't know, tell them your mantra, because this really helps to get it about winning versus losing.
Oh, I have a big sign. I have motivational signs on my door, and I also have funny signs on my door. But I have a sign that says, "I hate losing more than I like winning." And he knows when I get into game mode, I'm going to be the best of the best, and I'm going to find the best thing. And every Gettysburg 160, I come up with a new gimmick, a new toy, a new something. And that's what you have to do as well. You can't just succeed and then, you know, all right, let rest on my laurels. You have to keep innovating, and you have to keep buying the new tech and taking risks. It's calculated risks.
I only have one sign in my office, and it says, "Hey, you, get to work." And it was a gift from my wife.
I'll add that I have a bunch in my office, but they're all hidden kind of in my bookshelves because they would make people throw up. They're like just so positive, like everything is great. Like they're on the back of my bookcase. But I want to second everything you guys said. I want to attribute it to Shelby Foote or something like, "Ain't nobody everybody's cup of tea." I'm sure that's exactly how he would say it. There is no pleasing, no matter how good you are. And there could be 99.8% of the comments could all be great.
Yeah.
And then there are people out there. So I agree with the thick skin because they're
So here's a pro tip for you. If you get the one that goes on and gives like a 4-paragraph response ranting about everything, the best thing you can do, and this has become my standard response to those, "Sir, this is a Wendy's."
I'll add that you can't do this on YouTube, but I do it on Facebook. Sorry for anybody on my page. Is the hide feature. I'll like their comment and then hide it so they can't infect other people on my page. And I smile every time I do it because it's my page. You know. So I do want to add one more thing about the dark side of this because I do think that the whatever we want to call the minor fame, I don't know if that's what you guys call it, but if you get recognized as at an airport or in other countries, I think you got some level of that. It happens to me here and on battlefields. And it gets in our way sometimes, to be sure. I'm sure that happens to all of us. You're trying to work and people just want to, and you accommodate, and I'll take selfies and do things with whoever wants to. But there's one troubling part about it, is that not only do people not tell me who they are, okay, but then when I ask their names, I frequently, maybe 1 in 10 people say, "Oh, I'm nobody." What the hell is that? Okay, you know, we're regular people who just happen to make videos that people watch. You know, I can only imagine how people in Hollywood feel because they dress up and play, like or something like that. But the idea that because a lot of people see your video renders them unimportant is very troubling. Yeah. And to me, that's almost enough to keep some people out of this business too. Is that side of it? Yeah. You know, have you guys had an experience with this fame thing?
Yeah, I two things with that. One is, and I learned this lesson when we were all together actually at Antietam. I was still operating on the mindset that not a lot of people were going to respond when I did something like, "Hey, I'm going to be at the Antietam battlefield for these 4 days. If you see me, come say hi."
Yeah, we learned that the hard way.
Yeah, we don't tell anybody.
And I had good intentions. I just didn't know that it meant that I wouldn't be able to go 10 minutes without making a video, because every 10 minutes somebody was walking up saying hi, which is great. And I don't want to be a jerk, so I want to say hi, but then it means I can't get work done. So I've had to learn to kind of create some boundaries by not announcing where I'm going to be until the end of my trip, so all the videos are done, because I want to spend that time with people, and I want to be accommodating. I don't want to come across as leave me alone, I'm trying to work. But you also have to get the work done, so it's a balancing act.
Yeah, it is. All right, we're going to go down the line again. We're going to start with Chris and go Chris, then JD here. Straight up, one-word answer: Gettysburg or Gettysburg?
Gettysburg.
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 Sorry, Gettysburg. But Chris is right.
Yeah, and I get eviscerated for it.
I know he's right, but I still say that.
Yeah, me too. The founder's name, you can learn it downstairs here, beyond the battle. The founder's name is James Geddes. We all know this, okay? And yet, I like the way Gettysburg sounds.
Ask JD where the shot heard around the world was fired.
Okay, let's hear it. Where was the shot heard around the world?
Everyone knows that it was fired at Concord.
Oh no.
Not Concord,
We're going to get in
Concord.
big trouble here.
What is this?
Oh, look what finger he's using too.
Is this a cord or a curd?
I see some cottage cheese on it there. Okay.
So I will accept the apology of everyone in Boston who eviscerated me about my pronunciation of Concord.
Well, Chris White gets killed for this. Like, people actually get mad about it.
Yes.
Okay, away from the trite here. Let's get on to something meaningful that the Trust Board of Directors would really like to know, and the Trust Development Team would really like to know. What, all this work, right? We've changed, what does it do for the country? What does it get us? Like, all of our collective work and the other channels that we all follow. What good does it do? Let's start with you, JD.
So I mentioned earlier that one thing that makes a country or a nation is a shared history. So I think that you can't have that shared history if you don't know about it. And YouTube, in my opinion, makes that more accessible than at any other point in human history. I guess we could broaden that out and say the internet. So I think that has the main value, for what we do.
So I've got 3 kids that are almost 11, 15, and my daughter will be 18 on Monday, and they don't watch TV. They only watch YouTube. I mean, that is exclusively what they watch. If the History Channel spends millions of dollars and makes an actual history documentary, they're not going to see it. But they will see a video that I make on YouTube from me going to Verdun, stuff like that. And they will not have otherwise heard of Verdun. My wife is not into history, but she'll watch my videos about it. So it's I think, appealing to an audience that we otherwise are going to lose. So we're making these videos. There's a challenge there too, because anybody can make them. And anybody can say whatever they want. And sometimes it's really bad history. And so we have to be really careful that what we're talking about is true. We don't have to be experts, but we at least need to be telling the truth and speaking the actual history.
Isn't that the same with books, though?
Yeah,
I mean, anybody can write a book.
True.
I've read plenty of bad books with bad history.
But it's harder to get those published.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Self-published. So.
that's a decent point.
Yeah.
But I think there's a checks and balances thing as well. If there's bad history, there's going to be a following there. But there's also going to be, the good historians that are going to check that.
Well, Chris Mowry, your daughter's birthday is Monday. Are you going to be home in time?
We're going to be home. We're going to be here for Stephen Lang on Monday morning, and then we're heading home after that.
All right, you got your priorities straight.
Yeah.
Chris White?
Yeah, I would say that, to paraphrase David McCullough, nobody did any harm to history by making it interesting. And I think that making history more accessible, more people in, for the trust specifically, that's going to help us to get our messaging out there, especially for preserving battlefields, getting more members, things like that, but also to inspire the next generation, as we say, and it's also educating the general public. So making it more accessible, I mean, it hasn't done anything to hurt folks. And we actually came up with an idea called Battlefield U. In 90 seconds or less, we came up with the idea that we were going to answer simple questions like, what is a casualty? A lot of people think it's just everyone who's killed. So we put that there, and so many people just go to Google, and one of the first things that'll pop up is a YouTube clip or a YouTube video. And that's what we started to try to do, because people go to Google, people are interested. It's not just older people who are interested in history. It's younger people, but they don't always see them at places like this because they have families, they have jobs, they have other things to do. But we see them behind the computer because we can all access our numbers and we can all access our demographics, and we can see who's watching, when they're watching, how long they're watching. And of course, they're very positive feedback for all of us.
One thing that I've said in the past is nobody hates history. They hate how they were taught.
Yeah.
So, I can talk to somebody and, they find out that I'm into history or have a YouTube channel or have a background in education or whatever. And, they'll say, oh man, I hated history when I was in high school. And within a few questions, you find out, well, they just don't really like how it was presented to them or how it was taught. So yeah, I think that, all three of us have there's a common thread with history, but there's also 3 different channels and 3 different flavors, and that appeals to a broad range of people.
Cool, good guys. Let's, because we want to make sure we allow time for the scariest part of the presentation, questions from the audience. Oh my God, I'm going to try to look at you and pick who's going to ask us questions we're going to like, so that'll be fun.
Only people that are wearing our merch. That's
Yeah. You have to have Trust, History Underground, or Vlogging Through History merchandise. No, just kidding. You have to have a Beyond the Battle little sticker on your shirt. How about that? But real quick, what's coming? Any of you can go first, but what's coming up on your channels that you might want people to know about that you're allowed to talk about? Anyone?
So one of the big gaps that I have on my channel, it's very heavy Civil War, very heavy World War II, and then a spattering of things here and there. But one of the big gaps is World War I, and I'm in a World War I phase. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite part of history? And it's whatever I happen to be studying at the time. Right now, it's World War I. So I'm about to, fill a pretty big gap on my channel with that.
Please, Gary, just let me go over there. Please.
Yes.
I'm big.
And to make Chris feel even worse about it, my next upcoming series is I'm going back to the Somme. I did a 6-part series from the Somme last year. It was my first trip to France, and it was life-changing for me. I mean, I had done research for months about that trip, and when I stood in the spot where the Accrington PALs lost 80% casualties in 100 yards in like 30 minutes, I had done that research months before, and I was reading the casualty figures as I stood where it happened, and it just hit me in that moment. The history really did come alive for me, and I've been, World War I has been an obsession for me ever since. So I went back and just did another 6-part series from the Somme, and I want to go to Chickamauga at some point, so hopefully this fall. And then I'm actually got a tour group, and I know I ran into somebody today here at Gettysburg that's going to be on our tour. We're going to Germany and Austria in October. So
Not bad. Chris White, is there anything I don't know about?
Let me think. Well, I'm going to the Somme, and then I'm going to the Bible. So we're working on some things in the green room. Right now we have more of these step-ins that JD had talked about here with Gary, and they are a historic image where we physically step into those images. One of the ones that we filmed recently was the Sunken Road Dead at Fredericksburg. We did a meeting between Meade and Grant at Massaponax Church. Hopefully those will come out within the next few months. We have, do you want me to tell about the big one?
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
yeah.
I don't even know what you're in.
We're working on what we call an all wars animated map. It's in the very last stages of production, where we're going through pronunciations of the World War I and World War II battlefields, because we're going to go from 1754 to 1945. It'll be an animated map, encouraging folks to learn more about those wars, which is ironic since I'm the only one who pronounced Gettysburg right. They came to me for the pronunciation. And so that's going to be cool. If you've ever seen our animated maps, they're basically mini documentaries that fast-moving, give you enough information to be dangerous, and then learn more about that subject. And of course, we have virtual field trips we've been working on, which are really awesome. We work with a video company called Acalsay. That's their real name. They're out of Minnesota, and we have some really cool behind-the-scenes things at the World War II Museum that we're working on down in New Orleans, and some other places we'll release, like the Hunley. And then I think finally we have a few more driving tours. Gary did a driving tour here last year. Well, actually we shot it during COVID, came out last year, of his 2.5-hour tour here around the Gettysburg battlefield. So it's like having a licensed battlefield guide in your car with you. We released one with Tim Smith of the West at Shiloh. We have Yorktown coming out. We have Chickamauga coming out, and some others. And that's a really cool shoot, and that was really cool to pull together because it was a multi-camera shoot in different states, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Chris from Vlogging Through History is going to react to all of our videos afterward, thereby getting even more trips to Verdun and the Somme.
Exactly.
Can I throw in one more plug?
Yeah, sure.
So we're at the Adams County Historical Society right now. They also have a YouTube channel that is outstanding.
They're rocking,
that I would highly recommend.
Andrew's back there smiling like
You know, he made a little heart thing, like the little beating heart thing.
It's seriously good. I mean, all of us, when we went to school, like what you learn about, I'll just pick the Civil War. Most of us probably learned, about Fort Sumter, Bull Run, Manassas, Gettysburg, Vicksburg, and then Appomattox. That's what you learned.
If that much.
If that much. And channels like there's all these different history channels on YouTube, I think fulfill an important role in filling in the gaps and helping us to broaden our knowledge. So anyway, we're here at this amazing facility, and I want to make sure that we plug their channel as well because it's really, really good.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm gonna add one more thing onto what Chris White said as a lead into my next and very selfish question as well. But one other thing we've been working on since last June is meeting with actors and people involved with the Gettysburg movie to celebrate its 30th anniversary that's coming this October. It was shot 30 years ago last summer, and we've been meeting with them on location to talk about what it was like to shoot this movie. We already released one video, and then there will be, 10, 15, 20. Chris is trying to cap it at 20, but we've shot a lot of stuff.
I think we honestly have like 60 hours of footage at this point.
Yeah, we do have 60 hours.
We need all 60 hours
yeah,
of footage.
Yeah,
No, believe me, you don't. We have one guy who just tells the same story 6 times.
That's true. Yeah, you know who you are. We have a video coming up before long about your favorite lines, where we have various people doing those lines. Sometimes the actors, sometimes
nice.
not. We're going to have things like at the barn where Hood was wounded, and the scene of Pickett's charge, and the shooting at the video shooting or the film shooting at Devil's Den. Something about the drone, something about the first day shot, and all of the multi-purpose places where 10 different things were shot in one place and you would never know it. So we're going to get into all that. But the next video that we'll launch is on Monday, and here's where the selfish part comes in, because that is about the movie Gettysburg's Beards, often called Getty's Beard. Okay, and it's going to be a fun little short video where we got it, and in honor of that, some of you know that I'm going to, based on the will of the social media crowd, shave this mess into whatever y'all choose on tomorrow night. Okay, so right now, Strong Vincent and Abe Lincoln and Patty O'Rourke. Patty O'Rourke sort of has a Burnside thing going on here. Vincent has the big mutton chops, and Lincoln has everything but the mustache. Like basically going on and on. I'll do it tomorrow night, but my question for you guys is have you tried historic facial hair and if you could grow any one, what was it? Because this is important for the future of YouTube in Normandy and Gettysburg.
I'd like to point out, Gary came up with this idea on his own. We didn't talk him into this. This is a Gary Edelman.
You know I can't grow a beard, Gary.
Is that why?
Do you see what I'm trying to do?
So yeah, that's the question. If you could, would you rock a Burnside?
Absolutely.
JD, you're close.
I think that Grant just has a good classic beard. But I get it. The burden of manliness is pretty heavy for some of us.
Chris White, you're kind of rocking a John Gibbon over there, if I'm correct.
Yeah, if I wouldn't get divorced, I'd totally go for like a Bismarck or something like that.
Nice.
And definitely go for like a Kaiser Wilhelm with the whole.
Man, I would recommend sticking only to those German leaders.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Hold on, can I drop the mic now?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Hey guys, before we take some questions, anything else you want to add that maybe I didn't talk about?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is one of the driving forces for me behind wanting to make videos where I went to these historic sites is I learned really on, and I'm sure many of you, because you're all here at Gettysburg, learned is that your perception of historic events changes completely when you go there.
And you can write them off on your tax.
That too. The first time I went to Dealey Plaza and I saw the distance between the book depository and the ground, I was like, that's it? It was so much bigger in my mind, you know. And the first time I went to Shiloh and saw that the entire time the Confederates were attacking uphill, it would just change my perspective of that battle. And you read about Burnside Bridge and you think, how could a small band of Confederates hold it? And then you go there and you're like, oh, that's how they did it. You know, it changes everything. So that's one of the reasons why I do it.
Good, good. Anything else, guys? All right, here we go. I'm standing up talk show style.
Oh, boy.
Any questions for you? You raise it
boy.
first.
This is terrific. I really enjoy this. Are you guys ever home? How many days on the road out of the year are you guys? This is incredible.
So first of all, he did it with a nice loud voice. If you need the mic, I'll come to you or do my best. If you can't, if you're able to, nice and loud so everybody can hear. Are we ever home, guys?
Yes, I am home sometimes. The channel is a little bit deceptive in how it makes it look like I'm just gone and traveling all the time. In reality, I'll be gone maybe a week at a time, and in that week I'm filming. You know, if I'm by myself, I'm filming daylight to dark, and I'm gathering up months worth of content just in that 1 week. So the channel makes it look like I'm just gone all the time. In reality, it's a week here. It's 3 days, you know, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday here. Yeah. As far as how many days I'm gone, I don't know.
71.
That's it. Yeah.
I probably do 8 trips a year, and each one's a couple of days to a week at most. So yeah, I'm not gone that much either.
When I took the job, it said travel 0 to 10% of your job. That was a lie. I agree with JD. We do the same thing. When we hit the ground, people don't understand. We come in, we'll shoot 6 to 8 videos in a day, and we'll come into a museum. They're like, all right, we have the next 4 hours. We have 30 minutes. And that's what Gary will tell them. And it's like you can just see them sinking. But we can shoot a lot, and we are outsized because we release things staggered. But we're on the road at least, I would say, 6 weeks a year. I would say combined with everything that we do, between events too. We also try to shoot while we're at our annual conference, Teacher Institute, and stuff like that.
6 weeks, that's probably about what I'm going to.
All right. 71, 41.
Yeah.
All right. How about over here? You, sir.
So because I discovered your channel, Chris, through him and by extension you, JD, do any of you have any plans to do a collaboration with Atum Shea Films?
Got some Auten Shea films here.
Yeah, so the question was if we plan to do any collaborations with Auten Shea.
Yeah.
Any collaborations planned, anything?
I haven't talked to him, but I would. Yeah, when I first did my first reaction to him, I would have said no. But yeah, the Gods and Generals one. Yeah,
It's called Gods and Jackson.
Gods and Generals. accurate. But no, I definitely would. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I don't know him personally, but I'm familiar with his work. But yeah, absolutely.
What do you think, Chris? We have some reputational risk going on with our organization on who we involve ourselves with, so you guys should be happy you made the cut. But, you know, we have to be a lot careful. We have members to answer to. We're a fundraising organization. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I'll speak with our Lord and Savior, James Campy Jr., who's our policy and communications director. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what else we got? Okay, front row, Tim York.
This is for you two.
Yeah.
Have you ever caught a football after it was broadcast? And if so, what was the worst one?
Oh, man.
Well, you dropped some Civil War sexual innuendos on one of our videos last year.
I don't think this is a family channel here that we're streaming on. I don't think we should repeat it.
So is ours.
We'll leave that one there.
Yeah, there are times from time to time, my brain doesn't communicate with my mouth well, and I'll be thinking one thing and I'll say another. And usually, hopefully I catch that when I'm editing, but sometimes you see some things so many times when you're editing stuff that your mind almost gets numb to it. Yeah. Probably the one that bothered me the most was I came here to Gettysburg, filmed all this content, and was all excited, to launch this huge series. The very first video was out at Seminary Ridge Museum, and I said that Sam Elliott, in my mind, I thought Buford, and I said Reynolds. And people, so this is the very first video, and people just ripped me to shreds, justifiably, yeah.
I do that all the time because I do a lot of reaction videos, and I don't, contrary to what some people think, I don't watch those ahead of time. So I have no idea what's coming, and so most of what I'm saying, I'm just doing off the cuff, and so occasionally I'll remember a fact wrong or stuff like that. But there was one I did. I was in Verdun in France. Sorry, Chris. And I did this great video, and I was really excited about it. It was about this guy named Colonel Driant, who was this French soldier who commanded this group of light infantry, and I kept referring to his unit as chasseurs, which is the French word for shoe. And what I meant was chasseurs, which is the French word for light infantry. And I did it every single time in that video, so I never put the video up, even though I loved that video because I just couldn't get over the fact that people were going to just not be able to get past me saying that.
What's the correct pronunciation?
It's chasseur, not
Chasseur.
There's a difference between, there's a U in the word for shoe, and that was what I kept saying.
We've never done it before, but Chris White would suggest that it could be like, and here we are, we're going to talk about the chasseurs. And it's going to be like, so the audio doesn't match at all. Wait, did you consider doing that?
We have never done that.
Chris, you good?
Yeah, all I'll say is just to tip in, try working without a net for 45 minutes, reciting historical information off the top of your head while you're trying to do a video with people watching you. And I mean, there's pressure. It's not like real pressure, but there's pressure to perform there. And it's, things start up here and they come out of your mouth like Blutton whenever you're standing at Grant's tomb and telling them to push that subscribe button. Harry likes to remind me of that one. Yeah.
Not only thicken your skin if you're going to get into this business, but also be prepared to make mistakes.
Yeah. 100%.
We probably spit out 20,000 words each today on our 3 or 4
You just
live
didn't
videos.
about the last 3 sentences.
And you're going to get stuff wrong.
Yep.
And that's another
100%.
important thing. I'm going to go to the pre-raised hand. I think that's Cibola over there or whatever.
You sort of did a lead in on my question. First of all, you guys are great. Been following you for a couple years.
Thank you.
Thank you. All you guys are great. Great role models. Wonderful people.
Keep going.
Yeah. Gary just mentioned live videos, and I was curious what your thoughts are about doing live versus the pre-recorded. I don't think there's a lot more frustration or tension, or I don't know.
I love the live stuff because it's live interacting with people. And I did, like, some of my most popular live streams. I'm really into the British royal family and stuff like that, so I live streamed the Queen's funeral. And was chatting with people and saying, here's why they're doing this, or with the coronation. Just talked about the symbolism behind stuff, and people were asking questions in real time. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
You were in a studio, right?
I was at my home, yeah. I was at home, yeah. It's a little different outside, yeah.
So let me tell you, when your boss wants you to go to Devil's Den with a hotspot and an iPhone and try to stream live, it's going to give you an ulcer. If I had a shot for every time he used the word connectivity the first time we did that, I would have been hammered by the time we went live. Because all I heard was, how's the connectivity? How's the connectivity? So live, there are benefits for sure, and there's great interaction right then and there with your audience. I really like that. Producing the videos legitimately right on my phone, and I mean, Gary has seen me.
Looking at comments and banning people and doing the content while he's shooting with the rights of them. Maybe we should get some more staff.
Yeah. Well, when we're live, we're actually, I'm using an app called Switcher, and as we're going through, if you watched any of our videos over the last few days, those animated maps, all of the drone footage we're using and everything, I mean, that's all preloaded into my phone where I'm scrolling as fast as humanly possible as Doug Dowds is standing on a little round top saying, and George Sykes and Gouverneur K. Warren and this, and I'm trying to find the right people and do that. So in a way, it's rewarding. But it can be trying, especially when you talk about connectivity. People today are like, why don't you improve the connectivity? Why don't you be here on a battlefield where there's a ton of people right now, and the bandwidth is actually being drained in this area because a lot of people are legitimately watching all of our videos out on the field. I heard Gary's voice coming from a car today. And then I heard Lee Mott's coming from another car. It was amazing.
But have you had this happen? Have you had somebody upload a video of a car getting into a car accident while JD's voice is on the radio?
Excellent. Yeah.
I appeared on a car wreck video. Somebody was watching my channel while they were driving.
Yeah.
Was that you? That was you. Oh. That is awesome. I am so glad that you sent that to me. That was the wildest thing I've ever seen.
But also live video is fun. The other day, Steve Zahn, an actor, showed up, spoiler alert, on one of our videos. He comes just running in. He looks like a homeless guy right now because he has this beard and he goes, I look homeless because I'm playing a homeless guy. So, you know, and he was, and Gary's like looking at this guy and I could see him. I was on camera like, that's Steve coming over here. And if you don't know Steve, he is a fantastic actor. He's been in The White Lotus for season recently, That Thing You Do, all kinds of different things. But yeah, I think it's rewarding, but it's also very difficult to go live.
It is. So let me see. I'm going to look for somebody in a white top and a floral skirt. You, man, right there.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
And my experience with watching all of you has been, it has allowed me to connect with my ancestors, and you go to places where my ancestors have been. I understand Normandy because of where you have been to Utah Beach and Omaha Beach, and I understand about the USS Cairo, and I'd like to see more of the Western Flotilla, just putting that in there. But you have helped me connect to my ancestors, and I was wondering, have you connected with your ancestors with places you've gone?
Just real quick, have you, I was supposed to be repeating the questions, it appears. And it's good to check your text while you're here. So have you been able to connect with some of your ancestors through this work?
Chris is about to absorb the next hour of this.
It's good to know because you got 41 seconds.
There's a drinking game for vlogging through history, and one of them is every time I mention my ancestors.
On our channel, it's every time I mention Pittsburgh.
So, for me, I'll keep it short. For me, I've been a professional genealogist for going on 30 years. It's my passion in history, especially. For me, in particular, that's what I love about history. Today, I stood at the peach orchard. The 57th Pennsylvania was at the apex of Sickles' line. I had a great uncle who was in that unit. His father was in the 4th Pennsylvania Cavalry on Cemetery Ridge, and from the 57th Pennsylvania Monument, I could turn around and see the 4th PA Cavalry Monument from where we were standing. And I've always wondered, could he see his son's unit getting decimated in the peach orchard while that was happening? Those are the kinds of things that I think about when I go to battlefields because I connected with my ancestors. My third great grandfather was a 17-year-old private in the 56th Pennsylvania. They fired the first shots of Union infantry in this battle. So, you know, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for me, I went to Andersonville. I had an ancestor who was at Andersonville and talked about the experience there. Another one that I can think of off the top of my head is my great-great-grandpa was in the 27th Illinois Regiment, and I did a video at Kennesaw Mountain. So right there at the dead angle, you know, did a video there, talked about it, things like that. And then later, I didn't know it at the time, but found out that he was there. And it turns out he stormed the Confederate lines at Kennesaw Mountain. It was about 30 yards to the left of where I was standing there at the dead angle. So that was kind of a neat connection there. Yeah. And then got to take my daughter back there later on and say, hey, this is where your great-great-great-grandfather fought. Yeah.
Yeah, and here, last year I made a video, Gary let me make one of my ancestor who was mortally wounded at Stony Hill. I'll talk about one in an upcoming video who was here in 1917 at the World War I training camp. He was a cotton baler with the 7th U.S. Infantry. So I started here at Gettysburg where he trained, and then last year my wife and I were where he was wounded on the Marne. He was part of the Rock of the Marne division whenever they earned their nom de guerre. She has ancestors who fought here, some who claimed they fought here and did not. We found those ones out. So yeah, we were able to really connect that way, and I know it meant a lot to my family that we did a lot of genealogy, especially during COVID, and then being able to talk about it on video has been awesome.
Good. Anyone way in the back?
I was just curious as to which are your favorite parts of the battlefield?
Which are your favorite parts of the Gettysburg battlefield?
Wheat field for me. Yeah.
There's a spot, I was there today, where you can stand and the wheat fields to your right and Little Round Tops to your left. That's my favorite spot on the battlefield because you can see so much of what happened right there.
Or what losers call that area the Pennsylvania Reserve Monument.
That's the one.
And here at Gettysburg, it's the wheat field.
And I'm going with that area between Devil's Den and Little Round Top. where my ashes will. I'll just stop there.
First of all, thank you guys for all that you do. It's really helpful and everything. But
Thank you.
JD, my heart broke for what recently happened to you.
Yeah.
Have you found anything? Are you recuperating? Are you building back up?
Yeah, I'm.
JD, are you recuperating from your loss when you were in Athens of your equipment and your content?
Yeah. So just the context there. Had literally all of my gear, all my computer equipment, everything stolen from me in Athens. Yeah, we went to our Airbnb, had my family with me, locked up the vehicle, went to check and make sure we were in the right spot, went inside, checked it out, came back out, weren't gone more than 15 minutes and somebody had knocked out the window and yeah, stole all my stuff. So yeah, I'm in the process of recouping all my gear. The Athens police were not exactly helpful in, or
That's
eager.
an understatement.
Yeah. So I had a little, like find my iPad or find my computer and everything like that. And where it popped up, long story short, was in the most dangerous part of the city. And a couple of the local guys, when they saw it, they were like, "Oh, that's bad." And then when I showed it to the police and said, "Hey, can we go here and at least see?" They said, "We're not going there," and highly advised me not to go as well. So anyway, but people have been just exceedingly generous to me throughout this whole thing, and yeah, I'm looking forward to passing along that generosity to others.
Good. Thanks, JD. Sorry about that. Right there in the middle, younger person.
How you doing? My name's Mike. I actually saw you over at the battlefield.
Yeah.
First of all, you guys have totally inspired me. I started my own page on Instagram a few about earlier in the year. But my question for you guys, what would you say is your most underrated Civil War site or American history site, or most underappreciated to you? Because I know there's a lot of small things that sometimes, I mean, when you see them, it carries so much. And
Yeah.
there's and they're not always the most visited sites. So what would that be for you?
First off, can you remind me the name of your Instagram page so I can write it down?
Frido History,
Yes.
FRIDDO History. Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Thanks. Go ahead. Yeah, you guys.
Vicksburg. Love the Vicksburg battlefield. There's so much. I had two ancestors in the 22nd Kentucky that fought at Chickasaw Bayou.
Cut them off now. Take a drink.
Google the 22nd Kentucky's battle flag after Chickasaw Bayou. There's nothing left of it. But yeah, Vicksburg battlefield, Champion Hill in particular, which I know you guys are working on preserving. One of the most important battles of the Civil War that nobody talks about.
Good. Chris?
We're done, Gary? Can we go? I would say, to me, it's West Point. It's not only the United States Military Academy that created 2 U.S. presidents. It was, people who were astronauts, senators, congresspeople. It was also integral to the American War for Independence. It's where the greatest traitor in American history turned his back on George Washington and almost tried to get George Washington captured by the British. And it was a key to holding the upper part of the United States at that point together. And if the Hudson River had fallen because of West Point falling, we could have been cut in two. So I think that's a very underrated place, and especially, just the military academy itself is just inspiring, but there's so much history up there.
And make sure you catch our footage for Gettysburg 150 as we bring artifacts from the West Point Museum out to the battlefield and here at Beyond the Battle downstairs tomorrow afternoon, I think from 1 to 4. 1 to 4, you can see some of those objects and more while you're there. I see some questions over there, but JD? Did you have one to add?
Yeah, sure. So probably one in the past year that I visited that I really enjoyed and that I think is very underappreciated is Battle of Wilson's Creek. That's a battle that happens very early in the war and is often just kind of overlooked or forgotten. And it's also in a part of the country where there aren't many major battles that take place. You come out to this part of the country around Virginia and things like that, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Civil War battlefield.
Do you swing dead cats often?
He's got one on his camera.
But you get out there and it's a lot more sparse, and yeah, I found it terribly fascinating.
Yeah, it's just weird to just connect with some of these places. That happened to me certainly at Blackstock, South Carolina. There's hardly anything in that park, small Revolutionary War battlefield, and somehow there, I could picture it. Somehow there, it just worked. I had a feeling like that at Pea Ridge as well. Very cool place as well. Now, I've called on 3 more over here in order. We'll do a couple more over there, and we'll probably wrap it up. So 3 on this side, and it is you, sir.
Okay, so I wanted to ask about fundraising. So the American Battlefield Trust obviously raises money to preserve and protect. These 2 guys, you know, are pretty independent. So would you say that your heightened viewership has helped with the fundraising?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak out to this one first, and then whomever can add on. Being a fundraising organization, I mean, we have certain limitations. You know, our mission only allows us to preserve land at certain places. And our videos where we talk about, hey, give us money, don't do as well as the other ones. But all of them together come to create an awareness where suddenly us out on the field are actually seen more than our own president. He's comfortable with that. But we've become this mouthpiece of spreading of history, and a lot of it is anecdotal. We can read the comments. I just joined, I gave you $10 more, and while other organizations are bleeding members, we're staying steady, which in this day and age, younger people don't join things anymore the same way that people who aren't so young used to. And fundraising has held pretty steady. So we have a lot of anecdotal information. We know how much money we make, say, from YouTube ads that you are forced to watch sometimes. But our real game is to get more people involved, and then they get involved with our land preservation efforts. Let me hit it to Chris to see if there's anything else I missed there.
Yeah, I would just tip in that, and we don't try to go out there and beat the drum on, you know, at ACHS asking for money. We think it's kind of garish to go out to, you know, West Point and ask for money if we're filming there, or if we're on National Park Service land. You know, we'll remind people, you know, go check out our website. You know, we have content over there, and everything we do is free. All of our videos are free. We have no paywalls. It is our members who help to pay for us to do these things. So we want to make sure that people know that when we go out there. Sometimes we have specific fundraisers on Facebook, and we do specific things, but we always do that either on our land or land we're about to preserve. So we want to make sure that there's a clear line that people don't think we're going to show up just to raise money. And luckily, people don't think that. Most people want to shine light on their places. And I think that's why all 3 of us are invited to come out to small historic sites, large historic sites. I mean, the numbers alone open doors that you can never imagine. All they have to do on their teams at like the National World War II Museum, I'm the guy who works at the Civil War Trust back in the day when we were still called the Civil War Trust, come and knocking on their door, and they're letting us through because of the numbers that we have and things like that. So it does make a difference.
Guys, anything else to add on the money front? I know you're in a slightly different
Yeah. I think both of us have spoken pretty forcefully about our support of the American Battlefield Trust, because we can't make the content we make without the land that you guys preserve. So yeah,
it's one of the few organizations that I support financially. Ripping some of your stuff off, I might as well throw a few bucks.
Well done, we steal your stuff too, and we don't give you any money.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and making it so entertaining for everybody too. If you could meet one person from the past and ask them one question, what would it be?
I'm going to jump in before Chris does. Either one of the Chris's. It would be Teddy Roosevelt. And my question would be, do you want to go hunting?
And he says no.
Well, I would have said Teddy Roosevelt too, so go to Chris and I'll have to think of an answer.
Oh man, mine is probably to sit down with Napoleon and ask him, what the hell were you thinking going to Russia?
Yeah, that's good.
It's like, you had it all, Nutty. You had it all.
Yep. Wow. Woodrow Wilson?
Where do you sleep?
How do you sleep? There's a well-known disdain for Woodrow Wilson that I have on my channel. Yeah, I'd probably say Theodore Roosevelt also. And I would honestly, my question to him would be, how did you wake up and get out of bed every morning after losing your mom and your wife the same day? He wrote in his diary that day, "The light has gone out of my life." Most people, that would just destroy them. And he went on to do incredible things, and I've always been in awe of what he made of himself after going through that.
You can't open up with that question. You have to spend 5 days in deer camp with him, and then you can ask that question.
He said one question, not question. So just real quick, I sound positively trite, as I often do. That's my brand, actually. But mine is Alexander Gardner. God, where was the Harvest of Death photo taken? And then I wouldn't have to get people getting mad at me all the time for not thinking their theory is right. So with that, we'll do one more over here, then two on the other side of the room.
Thank you. I am a big fan of you guys. You inspire me. I'm a historian myself. I love that you're inspiring a younger generation of history buffs. And I wanted to ask you kind of what is your origin story when it comes to being a history buff? What was that bug, that history bug that bit you as a kid or a young adult, whether it was a book or a movie or a person? What was that one thing?
Well, it's been in the news lately, but for me, my first introduction to historical obsession was when they found the Titanic in 1985. I was 8 years old. I went down to the library right away, the McKinley Memorial Library. William McKinley was born right there in town. Got every book on the Titanic, and that began a lifelong obsession for me where when I get interested in a topic, I just get obsessed with it for months and learn everything I can about it. And then for the Civil War, it was two things. It was the Gore v. Dow's Lincoln miniseries with Sam Waterston on TV, and then it was Ken Burns' documentary. And from then, I was hooked on the Civil War.
Very good, guys.
Okay.
I've told this story before on some of our videos, but I was literally born when my mom was watching Gone with the Wind.
Which I've never seen.
She went into labor, and so she says I was born to do this. But we used to come here to Gettysburg to stay and not actually go to the battlefield. There's a car show that's about 40 minutes to the north of here at Carlisle, and my father loved going to the car show, and I am not a car person at all. But we ended up staying around town and going around to the battlefield. So as a kid, I mean, they have pictures of me all over the place, and I fell in love with it. And more we would come back, not just for the car shows. And then the movie Gettysburg came out. I saw some reenactors out there, and that was it. I was hooked. We paid $90 for the VHS at the Horse Soldier when it first came out.
Yes, that's where my copy came from, too.
We still own it. Yep.
For me, my origin, as far as, what drew me into history would be my grandpa's on both sides. I remember my brother and I just laying awake at night listening to my grandpa tell stories, or we go out and feed cattle in the morning and riding around the truck and everything like that. It was always asking questions and saying what was it like when you were in the Korean War, and what was it like growing up during the Depression? What'd you guys do here, and things like that. So that was kind of like personal stories that really kind of opened things up into a broader narrative. And this is going to sound weird. If I had to name a movie that really got me into history, this is going to sound odd: Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes. Yeah. The whole parallel storyline, with World War II and the Nazis and everything like that, it really fascinated me.
So it wasn't the Crystal Skull?
No. All right, we got two left, and let me note, by the way, it's him, and then in the far back over there, and then right after that, we're going to be whisked away into limos, so you won't be able to talk to us. No, we will. I can't.
They gave you a limo?
Yeah, we got our own parking spots. We will. Well, this young man might be able to ask the last question after that.
Oh boy,
he gets a special privilege. I think his dad is awarded.
I'm really nervous about that.
I think we'll probably be around to answer some questions, but first.
My name's John. I've been following Chris and JD for a while. I've bugged them on Instagram and YouTube comments all the time. I've been listening to Gary and to Chris White on the Battlefield Trust as well. Thanks to Chris and the partnership he's doing with his trip agency there, I get to knock my biggest bucket list item off of going to Rome and to Florence.
You're going to Italy with me?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool.
So my question is what's your biggest bucket list item left your place to go?
Wow. For me, Peleliu. I desperately want to go to Peleliu. I'm going to try and make that happen in the next year. Honestly, Iwo Jima would be cool as well, but access to Iwo Jima is so stinking hard. But one of my favorite books of all time is With the Old Breed by Eugene Sledge, and yeah, there we go. I like you all. Yeah, so that's my top one.
I've been really, really fortunate because of the channel. I've gotten to knock a lot of bucket list stuff off in the last 2 years. The UK was my big one. Probably for me now, I'd say Jerusalem.
Ooh. Just one up to me.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be able to travel to many of the historic sites that I went to, and personally myself on vacations. But I would have to say that it's got to be Iwo. That would be where I want to go.
You guys should go do a video there.
Take JD with you.
Hey, you want a partner?
Yeah.
I know the guy who runs the equipment, so I can talk to the guy.
Yeah. I have a question for the trust, basically, but I first want to personally emphasize the importance of what you guys are doing with the trust.
Thank you.
Great-grandfather, 38th Massachusetts, got wounded on the other side of the Winchester High School football field. I had to walk around their practice, the Winchester High School, to see where he got shot in the chest. That's why it's so important what you guys are doing. And I wanted my son to see that place. So it's very important what you guys are doing. But my question for you is, has it become that much more of a challenge for you guys and what you're doing, considering the cancel culture attitude out there?
I'll walk and talk till I come up to you guys. I'd say no. I mean, our board and other people are worried about that. But you know, we had our best year on the internet during the Confederate flag controversy. Why? Not because we are pro one side or another or anything like that, because we had the resource about what these Civil War flags were. And you shouldn't have to worry about this too much if you're telling stories down the middle and with warts and all, okay? Now, if you're telling them down the middle, people are going to tell you you're too far left and you're too far right at the same time.
Absolutely.
Which can be frustrating, but it hasn't really impacted our business too much. There are certain questions, you know, that we don't love to answer in public forums because we're a fundraising organization, and sometimes we have secret things going on behind the scenes we don't want people to know about. But I don't think, and I'm going to pass it to Chris White next, because it hasn't changed the core of what we do educationally. We have had to ban more people because of some of it, and that's on both sides, by the way. On my page, I ban people equally, if you want to say pro-north or pro-south or pro-right or pro-left. Because, I mean, people are on one stream with the other, ready to fight with people, and there's just no room for that, at least not in my personal life. So, Chris?
No, I haven't seen it too much. I mean, we initially, whenever cancel culture started happening, you know, some of our board members were worried we were too woke or not woke enough, and you know, and then these are the same people who said, you know what, it'd be really interesting if you had a map and you had one side move this way of lines and one side move this way. And Gary pulls up our animated map like this one. So they weren't really watching our content. So they didn't know what was out there. A lot of them do, but not all of them. And so I haven't seen really anything with that. And as Gary pointed out, it doesn't matter. If you're down the middle, you get it from both sides. I mean, we get it from all sides. You know, some people love me, hate Gary, vice versa, hate Chris Mikowski, love Sarah in the back, Sarah on our team back there. So we see it all the time.
Yeah, guys?
One of the things I say all the time on my channel is everybody has biases. Just some people deny that they have biases and other people embrace them. I'm very upfront about my biases. And one of the things I talk about all the time with people is I say, we're here because we love history. I don't care if you're an atheist or a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or if you're a Democrat or a Republican or anywhere in between. We're here because we love history. And when you throw that out there right away, you disarm that from being used against you. There are still people who try to argue that stuff, and like Gary, I'll just block them if they insist on being personal about that stuff. But we're just there because we love history.
And JD, before you answer, I just wanted to tip in what Chris said. We have battlefield in our name, and we'll have people say, why are you out here at a battlefield? Why are you making videos here? And I had a teacher at our Teacher Institute in 2019 and asking that question. You know, and I used a lot of the examples of why we do this. But there are people who say you do too much war content or you do this or that. We're the American Battlefield Trust. I mean, there are layers to military history. I mean, there's social, there's economic, there's all that. Yes, that's important to talk about the context. But at the end of the day, we're saving dirt and we're telling stories of history about soldiers who are out here fighting and serving for the U.S. I mean, that's how it goes.
Well put. JD?
Yeah, so the cancel culture stuff, concerns me and things like that. I try and always put a positive spin on everything. So when people, in the same video, call me a liberal snowflake and a Confederate sympathizer, and I'm like,
a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Nobody has ever been that mean to me. To me, that's an opportunity to engage in a conversation about history. Even if I may disagree with that person, hey, at least we're talking. And if other people are, observing or thinking about it as well, I'd rather they do that than not think about it at all.
That's great. We have one last bonus question coming, but before we do, don't get up and leave because we do have a last bonus question. I'm a little worried about this one.
You're worried.
Yeah. But first, guys, what a pleasure to be up here with you guys and just to chat. To all of you. For giving of your precious Gettysburg 160 time, which is at a premium. There's a lot of things to see, a lot of places to drink, and here you are. Some of you with hidden flasks enjoying us. We really appreciate the invite by the Adams County
Thank you, Andrew.
for hosting
Thank you.
us here today as well. All right, here's a funny YouTube star right in his own right here. Come on.
Do we need to pre-screen this question before we give him the microphone?
I think we're safe.
No, the answer cannot be the Holocaust, and because that's the obvious answer. If you could go back in time and change one thing, what would you change?
That's my son right there.
Well, Dad, you're up first.
Yeah, you're a kid. You take it first.
Wow.
You might have to take it alone. Remember Back to the Future.
Okay. I would change Abraham Lincoln's running mate in 1864 to someone other than Andrew Johnson. I think that one's kind of self-explanatory, but I feel like those months after the Civil War were some of the most crucial months in history, and we are still dealing with the consequences of getting that wrong.
If I could change one moment in history, I wonder what the world looks like if the guy who was driving the vehicle with Archduke Franz Ferdinand in the back, if he hadn't made a wrong turn.
That was almost mine.
Yeah. I wonder what a world looks like without that happening. Now that we've taken the two easy ones away.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I would, let's see.
See, I'm the moderator. I don't have to
Yeah. I usually have a few go-tos, but you actually took one of mine, Archduke. But I would say that a much stronger presence at the League of Nations and no Woodrow Wilson as president at that point. Just because I like him. Because it led us down a path, a dark path, and it led Europe down a very dark